Welcome back to Living Your Senior Life. Today we're stepping into a time machine to explore the 1950s, one of America's most transformative decades. The 1950s were marked by economic prosperity, the baby boom, and the rise of suburban life. This era saw the growth of the middle class, the emergence of the nuclear family, and the rise of consumer culture. As the Cold War shaped politics, traditional gender roles and family life became central to American society. At the same time, young people were carving out their own identities, with teenagers becoming a distinct demographic, and entertainment shifting with rock and roll and TV shows like American Bandstand. While life in the 50s seemed idyllic for many, the decade also saw the beginnings of significant social change, with movements like civil rights gaining momentum. Let's dive into what made the 1950s so iconic and why it still shapes American culture today. The decade opened with America entering the Korean War in 1950, the first major conflict of the Cold War era. The conflict arose from a division between the North, supported by Soviet interests, and the South, aligned with the United States. The American government saw its involvement as a stand against the spread of communism. Over 36,000 American lives were lost in this three-year struggle that ended in 1953, with an armistice that still divides the Korean peninsula today. On December 1, 1955, a seamstress named Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery, Alabama bus, igniting the Montgomery bus boycott and helping to launch the modern civil rights movement. Her simple yet courageous act of defiance became a turning point in American history. It culminated in a 1956 Supreme Court decision that declared segregated buses unconstitutional. In 1955, Dr. Jonas Salk's polio vaccine was declared safe, effective, and potent. Before this breakthrough, polio caused widespread panic each summer, paralyzed over 35,000 people annually, and parents feared letting their children play outside. Salk's vaccine changed everything, and cases dropped by 85 to 90% within 2 years. The late 1950s witnessed a monumental leap in scientific exploration with the Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik 1, marking the inception of the space age. This period saw the establishment of NASA in 1958, intensifying the space race against the Soviet Union. The 1950s also saw the expansion of nuclear power, both for energy and weapons. The first nuclear power plant to generate electricity for commercial use opened in 1957 in Shippingport, Pennsylvania, while nuclear testing continued throughout the decade. The American flag gained 2 stars in 1959, when Alaska and Hawaii became the 49th and 50th states. Since the 1920s, Alaskans had sought statehood. It was on January 3, 1959, that President Eisenhower declared Alaska the 49th state of the Union. Hawaii became an American territory in 1900. Hawaii petitioned to become a state many times during the 60 years between its being acquired as a territory and finally being allowed to become a state. On August 21, 1959, President Eisenhower signed the official proclamation admitting Hawaii as the 50th state. In 1956, President Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act, creating the Interstate Highway System we know today. This massive 41,000-mile network would transform American travel, commerce, and even housing patterns as suburbanization accelerated. The 1950s was the golden age of American automobiles. Cars weren't just transportation. They were rolling sculptures with gleaming chrome, dramatic tail fins, and bold colors. Popular models included the Chevrolet Bel Air, Ford Thunderbird, and Cadillac Eldorado. A new car would cost around $1,500 to $2,500. While that sounds cheap, it was about half an average worker's yearly salary. Innovations included power steering, automatic transmissions, and air conditioning becoming more common in consumer vehicles. Women's fashion emphasized the ideal feminine silhouette with cinched waists and full skirts. For a sleeker alternative, pencil skirts were in vogue. Poodle skirts became a fun and youthful trend, while cardigan sweaters and capri pants were a stylish choice for casual wear. If you were to step into a 1950s middle-class American home, you'd find black and white saddle shoes paired with bobby socks. You might associate the 1950s man with leather jackets, emblematic of greasers, an image that would not be out of place in TV shows reminiscent of the era. Despite the popularity of such casual attire, in the offices, it was the gray flannel suit that many American men would don, a symbol of the country's booming economy. Tailored suits with narrow lapels, high-waisted trousers, short haircuts characterized men's style. Men, while they occasionally opted for brown and white saddle shoes, gradually shifted towards penny loafers. The decade gave us unforgettable hairstyles. In the vibrant landscape of 1950s America, men's hair often took shape in sleek pompadours, a style magnified by Elvis Presley, the unspoken king of rock. A neatly set side part or a crisp crew cut signified the polished look of the time. For American women, Lucille Ball epitomized the era's charm with her poodle cut. Other popular women's hairstyles in the 1950s include the classic ponytail, bouffant, soft bob, and pixie cut. The 1950s witnessed the birth of rock and roll, forever changing American music. Artists like Elvis Presley, The King, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, Little Richard, and Fats Domino blended rhythm and blues with country and western to create something entirely new that captured the energy of youth culture. New music inspired new dances, the hand jive, the stroll, and the bunny hop, and of course the iconic sock hop dances held in school gymnasiums where teenagers removed their shoes to protect the floor. Television ownership exploded from 9% of American homes in 1950 to nearly 90% by 1960. Popular shows included I Love Lucy, The Twilight Zone, The Honeymooners, American Bandstand, and The Mickey Mouse Club. Despite the surge of television, movies persisted as a grand escape. Drive-in theaters became a cornerstone of American culture, offering a blend of privacy and community as audiences reveled under the stars. The screen siren Grace Kelly and heartthrob Marlon Brando were among the era's treasures. Burt Lancaster, Doris Day, Marilyn Monroe, and Charleston Heston are only a few of the iconic stars of the 1950s. Some of the more popular movies of the 1950s are All About Eve, A Streetcar Named Desire, High Noon, Singin' in the Rain, From Here to Eternity, Rebel Without a Cause, The 10 Commandments, and 12 Angry Men are to name only a few. Dining innovations. The birth of TV dinners catered to an ever-busy American family while McDonald's emerged, reshaping the concept of meals on the go. The decade had its share of quirky trends. Panty raids, a prank where large groups of college men would invade female dorms and steal their panties. Though they occurred earlier, it was after an incident at the University of Michigan in 1952 that began panty raids across the nation. Many times the women would open their doors and windows and toss out their undergarments. These harmless pranks soon saw injuries, and the colleges began penalizing those men involved with suspensions. Phone booth stuffing, a fad where several young people would enter a phone booth until no more could fit in. The record was set on March 20th, 1959 in South Africa, where 25 people were able to squeeze in. Soon after, the fad phased out. Hula hoops. Swirling around the waists of young children and adults alike, hula hoops became the embodiment of fun in post-war America. Other popular toys included Mr. Potato Head, Play-Doh, the Barbie doll, Frisbees, and Silly Putty. The 1950s gave us colorful language. A few examples are Peachy Keen, meaning good, greaser, a male that uses a lot of grease in his hair and cruisin' for a bruisin' when someone was looking for trouble. The 1950s may seem like ancient history, but this decade shaped so much of our modern world. From civil rights progress to rock and roll, from interstate highways to suburban living, the cultural DNA of this era continues to influence how we live today. What is your favorite part of the 1950s culture? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more informative content on senior living.